What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Fireside Giants. I'm your host, Anthony Rivardo, joined by my co-host, Alex Wilson. And the New York Giants season is, as I keep saying, spiraling out of control. They're 2-8. They're terrible. This is not a team that we want to watch. 2-7. They're about to be 2-8. Whatever the case might be. This is a bad football team. It's not fun to watch. However, there are some, not many, but there are some positives to draw and take away from the season. The overwhelmingly bright spot here being the Giants linebacker core. For the first time, I think, in my lifetime, I can say that the best unit on the New York Giants right now is the linebacker position. I've never been able to say that. This is incredible. I'm actually really happy about this. Again, it's a lost season. Hasn't been fun to watch the Giants, and I think that we're going to lose every other game for the rest of the season. But at least we get to watch two linebackers play some pretty damn good football, Alex. You got Micah McFadden really coming into his own in his second season, and of course Bobby Okereke, who the Giants signed this offseason. They are two studs out there on the football field, and like I said, for the first time in my life, I'm seeing consistently good Giants linebacker play. I can't believe it. So in today's episode, we're going to go ahead and discuss the performance of McFadden, discuss the performance of Okereke, and kind of just talk about how good they've been this season and what it means for the team moving forward. But before we dive into all that, make sure to leave a like if you do enjoy this episode. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. Ring the bell so you don't miss an episode, and comment your thoughts on the topic down below in the comment section. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify, please make sure to leave us a 5-star review. And go ahead and follow us on all of our social media channels at Fireside Giants. Without further ado, Alex, how are you doing today, my friend? And what are your thoughts on the Giants linebacker core?
It's one of the only positive things on this team. I'm doing well, by the way. The only positive thing on this team right now is arguably the linebacker duo of Micah McFadden and Bobby Okereke. And, you know, we told you guys months ago when we interviewed Bobby Okereke that this guy was going to be very good for us. And yes, this started out a little slow, but he's been very good the last 5 weeks or so. Like, excellent. Against the Buffalo Bills, the guy was a freaking menace to society. He was insane. And I'll tell you this right now. I'm pretty excited to see how that duo continues to develop, mainly because McFadden's only in his second season. So we have 2 more years in his rookie contract after this year. And then, of course, you have Okereke for another 3 seasons. So you have a minimum of 2 more years of these two guys together. And that is very good news for the Giants because they have been one of the only bright spots, one of the silver linings on what is otherwise a very disappointing year. Now, there's a couple individuals that have stood out, and notably Dexter Lawrence, Deontay Banks at times. Jalen Hyatt looked good last week. Of course, Daniel Jones missed a couple of throws to him. And then you have Wan'Dale Robinson, and even Saquon's had a couple of really good games. So, I think there are some highlighted pieces here that are long-term assets, and the duo of Okereke and McFadden, it's been a long time, man. It's been since Antonio Pierce, really, that we've had linebackers that we're generally proud to watch play football. No more Tay Crowders, no more Jalen Smiths, none of those guys. No more. I can't even Gerard Davis's, whoever else we freaking picked up off the street to play linebacker for us. It's insane. So I'm excited about these guys. Now, Bobby Okereke has 59 tackles, 33 stops on the year, a 69.6% reception rate, 215 yards allowed, has given up 1 touchdown, but has an interception and 3 pass breakups and 2 forced fumbles. So, the last couple of weeks, he's been excellent. His tackling grades are off the charts. His coverage grades are off the charts. His grades in general are just well above average. Micah McFadden was the 3rd highest grade linebacker in football this past weekend, my friends. He had a 91.1 grade. In fact, this is incredible, Anthony. Over the past 4 weeks, he's had a grade of 87.9 or above in 3 of those 4 games. So he's been out of his mind, playing out of his freaking mind. His run defense grades are ridiculous. He has 7 tackles for a loss this year. No, he's not really going to drop back into coverage very often. He's given up 143 yards this season, but otherwise, the guy's been absolutely electric. So, when you're looking at the different styles of play, what have you noticed in these two? Because I feel as though, Okereke has been very good in coverage. They've tasked McFadden with being that aggressor, and Okereke is kind of cleaning up on the back end. Maybe some rushing the passer every now and then on some unique blitz concepts. But otherwise, McFadden has been like a freaking heat-seeking missile. He has a 16% missed tackle rate, but my take is that he misses a lot of tackles because of how aggressive he is. I think that number is always going to be a little bit elevated because he gets into the backfield so often that sometimes he's just like that millisecond late. He just misses some of those tackles, which obviously get counted as a tackle for a loss, even if another guy comes in and tackles that guy immediately because of what he did to disrupt that play. But otherwise, he's been excellent. Like, I've been really excited. So, what are you seeing in the difference in these two guys and how they complement each other?
I think they complement each other really well because, just like you mentioned, Micah McFadden is that kind of downhill enforcer in run defense, but Bobby Okereke is a player who, is great in run defense, but really good in coverage as well, and kind of does it all for this Giants defense. So they play off of one another. You can have them both stopping the run, plugging their gaps, making those tackles, and they both do that job really well. But I think that when you're in situations where maybe you want to blitz Micah McFadden, or maybe you want to drop Okereke into a different coverage, like a more deep coverage, and have McFadden just kind of play the shallow zone, you can do those types of things because they have the skill set to kind of translate both ways. You can play more coverage with Okereke. You can ask him to do more things against the passing game. And then against the run, Micah McFadden, like you said, that heat-seeking missile. And I like the point that you brought up there. A lot of his missed tackles, in my mind, are him getting into the backfield, missing the tackle, but at least slowing the running back down a little bit, which causes somebody to come in and clean up the mess for Micah McFadden. So not really trying to knock on him for that. He's missing those tackles. It would be great if he was making them, but really he's creating a mess for the opposing offense, and other players are cleaning up his mess. And I think that's a really valuable trait. He's missing those tackles. Do I wish that McFadden was wrapping up and making those tackles in the backfield? I'm sure he does. It would probably help his statistics and one day help him get a bigger contract. But really what he's doing is making an impact by creating a mess in the backfield. And then you've got guys like Okereke, who comes in, cleans up the mess. Pinnock comes in, cleans up the mess. Thibodeau as well. He's been good in run defense this year. A lot of that has been a cleanup job. So he's creating a mess for these guys to have those cleanup jobs. And I think that is something that's pretty valuable. It doesn't show up in the stat sheet. It doesn't show up on PFF. On PFF, it gets graded as a missed tackle, and his tackling grade plummets on the game. But really, when you watch the game and you take a look at this film, it's not always so black and white. A lot of it is really nuanced, and I think that when you're looking at a lot of these missed tackles from Micah McFadden, they're not missed tackles that are causing, these huge runs to occur downfield. Every now and then, I'm sure he misses a tackle that, propels a big run to occur, but that's not what it always is. A lot of the times, he's running in full speed in the backfield, slowing down a running back who breaks his tackle, somebody else cleans it up and gets the tackle for loss, and there's really nothing wrong with that. That's a good thing. He plays with a lot of aggression. He plays very downhill, and he also plays really well as a pass rusher. If you're looking at McFadden's pass rushing stats the past few weeks, he's on a tear. Week 6 versus Buffalo, 3 pressures. Week 7 versus Washington, 2 pressures. Versus the Jets, 2 pressures. And he also had a pressure last week versus Las Vegas. So he's been getting in the backfield. He's got 4 quarterback hurries in that time span as well. 1 sack, 3 QB hits. So he's getting after the quarterback. So Bobby Okereke, not the best pass rusher. It's something that he can do. It's not what you want him to do. What you really want, Okereke drops in the coverage and McFadden blitzes. And that's been working for the New York Giants. They've been generating a lot of pressure through that exact strategy. And it's really only a strategy that you can deploy if your primary linebacker is good in coverage. And that's where I want to dive into Bobby Okereke and the way that he is the glue of this defense, because he is a linebacker who can play in coverage. And let me just say, you put down a little bit of a laundry list there of Giants linebackers. I gotta agree with you, it's an ugly list. You forgot the biggest one of them all, Alec Ogletree. I don't know how you forgot him, but remember when we had to try and watch Alec Ogletree be the staple of this defense, the guy in the middle to play coverage? That man couldn't guard anybody. And that's what they traded him for. They thought that he was going to be this coverage linebacker. He's not. But finally, the Giants do have a guy that they can rely on in the middle of the field from that linebacker spot to play coverage. Because if you look at Bobby Okereke's season, I know the PFF's grades, I kind of just mentioned that they're little more nuanced than they appear, but still at the end of the day, he has an 85.5 overall coverage grade from PFF, and that's far and away the best of his career. The closest is his rookie season at 81.2, but last season he was 67.4, so you're seeing a massive upgrade in coverage grading from Bobby Okereke. And then if you take a look at the stats, the completion percentage is pretty high. It's at a 70%, 69%, which is pretty high, but that's because he's getting he's letting up some catches and he's immediately making the tackle, and that's good coverage from a linebacker standpoint. A linebacker who has a bunch of yards after the catch, that's not so good. But a linebacker who's making the stop as soon as the ball is caught, That's what you want to see, and that is what we're seeing from Bobby Okereke. And we do see him break up passes, plug up passing lanes. A lot of the times what you see here, it doesn't show up in the stat sheet, but he takes away passing lanes, right? A lot of the times you'll see a quarterback, okay, they want to throw the slant route. Window 1 is closed by the wide receiver, so let's try and throw into window 2. Oh no, Bobby Okereke read that. He took away window 2, so this slant route isn't open. I have to go somewhere else with the football. That's happened a lot this season. It doesn't show up so easily, but when you watch the film, you take a look at it, you take a closer look at the way this defense is operating. Bobby Okereke is taking plays away from opposing offenses by being in the right spot at the right time, playing his coverage assignment, and taking away those routes over the middle of the field. So I'm loving the way that these Giants linebackers are playing. This is definitely one of the biggest positives to take away from the season. I talked a lot of great stuff about Bobby Okereke, the way he's playing in coverage. Don't get me wrong, he's playing great in run defense too. And like I said, you're seeing a lot of great pass rushing productivity as well from Micah McFadden. So you've got a real nice kind of fire and ice duo here in the middle of the Giants linebacker core. And it's something that's really exciting to see. But Alex, reflecting on the season from Okereke, his first year with the Giants, what have you seen from him as a leader, right? There's a leadership standpoint because we spoke to him in the offseason and we know what kind of leader he is, what kind of character he is. Very high quality, high character individual. But I've seen that show up. Captain in his first season with the New York Giants. How have you seen that kind of translate to the football field for the New York Giants so far this season?
Look, when it comes to leadership, there may not be a better leader than Okereke. Why? Because he actually plays at a high level and he does it consistently. I think people generally lead by example, and that's what I loved about Eli Manning for all those years. The guy showed up every single week. He played relatively consistently for years. Yes, he obviously the 2 Super Bowls are the primary thing that, we all remember him for. But he was consistent. Like, we got the same Eli Manning a lot of times, and it was really just like if the offensive line held up and he had the weapons, he was going to produce. And I think Okereke shows up. He doesn't say a lot. He doesn't talk crap to the media. He doesn't say stuff like Xavier McKinney is saying now. The leaders don't have a voice, and we thought that we were going to be competing this year. Okereke just does his job, and people follow that. I would follow that. I follow people, and I think most of you guys would agree, that generally show up, do what they say they're going to do, and don't throw freaking grenades into the mix all the time. Not to say that anyone else is doing that in the locker room, but we've heard comments and here and there, and we're like, you don't have to say those things. It's not going to change the fact that you're 2-7. Not going to change the fact that you still have to finish out this year. You get paid millions of dollars to play a game. I mean, that's pretty cool. I'd say I'd probably, even if I was on a bad team, I think I'd be down for that. So end of the day, if you're Bobby Okereke, you show up, you do a great job. You're playing excellent ball. He's really taken to the scheme that Wink Martindale has situated, and I do feel as though they've been pretty diverse the way they've utilized this scheme lately. Now, last week, of course, not ideal. The Giants' offense was just giving the ball back, punts, 3 and outs, and then obviously we kind of got beat through the air. And honestly, Josh Jacobs had a great game, and they just were more inspired than us. Like Antonio Pierce clearly had those guys playing on another level, and we caught them at a really bad time. So, is what it is. But what I do like about Okereke now is that even though this team is bad, even though this team is struggling, he's one of those few silver lining players that has elevated his game and played at a high level anyway. It's really easy to give up, really easy to just stop trying, really easy to not pursue, even though the postseason is a distant, kind of hope and dream at this point. But I just respect the fact that he shows up, does his job, does it well, maintains his leadership role, and thinks about the future and says, I don't think we have a bad team. Like, I think that he probably believes that the talent is there. They just hit a little bit of a bad luck this year with the injuries and whatnot. But that stands out to me. Like, those are the guys we need. Those are the guys that survive playing in New York. There's a lot of players who can't survive playing in New York because of the criticism and the hostility. I think Okereke is one of those guys that just, he takes those challenges and he actually uses it as fuel. So I do feel first couple of games he struggled. Same thing with Micah McFadden. I think he's that way too. I think those two guys are actually turning into really big leaders for us. There's a reason that Okereke, by the way, is one of the 10 captains, and he's a free agent first-year player on this team. So I do think that goes a long way in saying just how valuable he's been.
I totally agree, and kind of in the same vein, seeing the way that Okereke carries himself, speaking to him and knowing the way that he carries himself and seeing that leadership. You mentioned it there. Micah McFadden also proving to be somewhat of a leader here for this Giants defense, and one other thing that I want to say, you can see the confidence now that McFadden is playing with. It's a night and day difference. I think last year when you watched him play, he played a lot more than he should have as a rookie, a lot more than he probably wanted to. I'm sure he would have appreciated having a little bit more time to kind of sit back and learn before being thrown into with the Wolves here in the NFL. So you saw a lot of struggles from Micah McFadden last season. He wasn't the best player, but now year two, I mean, this confidence that he's playing with is paramount. Like it just shines through. He'll shoot those gaps. He'll make those tackles. Like you just see him playing at an elevated sense of urgency and an elevated feeling of I am one of the best players on this football field, and he's backing it up. Early on in this regular season, he was struggling. He was missing tackles left and right, and they weren't those kind of like cleanup plays. They were bad misses. But the past few weeks, man, he's been on an absolute tear. He's really responded to, I think, some of the criticism that he probably heard early in the regular season. And now he's really turned it around and proved to be one of the Giants' most promising young talents. And I will say, to hit on a 5th-round pick and get a starter at the linebacker position like this, man, that would be a dream come true. I mean, that's what we've been wanting for the New York Giants for the last, decade plus. We've been like, okay, please, take a chance on some of these middle linebackers. Develop them. One of them has to hit eventually. It looks like finally one might have hit here with Micah McFadden, and I could say we're all very grateful for that. So hopefully it remains true and Micah McFadden continues to develop, sharpen his skills, and become a great player. But I will say, I think this is a common theme here with the PFF grade thing. What we see a lot of the times is when you've got one good player playing next to another really good player, both of their PFF grades go up. And that's not a coincidence. We saw it with Dexter Lawrence. We saw it with Leonard Williams when they were playing alongside each other. We see this all the time, is that when you pair a player with another good player, their grades go up. And also just by the eye test and watching the game, they play better together. And I think that that's something here. This is a lesson for the Giants to learn. Look, they found 2 really good linebackers, and they're playing great alongside each other. Now let's see if we can get 2 good cornerbacks, right? Pair somebody with Deonte Banks, or maybe Trey Hawkins is that guy, develop him, right? Or really just apply this same level of thinking to the offensive line. You got Andrew Thomas. Maybe just get him one other good player on the offensive line to play alongside him and watch the whole unit transform. Hopefully John Michael Schmitz is that guy as well. Listen, the Giants, they're a bad team right now, but it's not because of a lack of trying. I think that Joe Shannon has made a lot of good picks, made a lot of good signings. I think they've got a lot of good young talent here. But again, what we see oftentimes is it takes 2 years to really come into your own, or a year and a half, like we're seeing with Micah McFadden. Struggles in his rookie season. Year 2, what a breakout. Hopefully we see the same thing from guys like Deonte Banks, like John Michael Schmitz. I think the ship has already sailed on Evan Neal, so let's give up on that one. But there are young players on this Giants team that hopefully next season, when we're a better team, hopefully better coached and, just healthier, all those factors that have been going against us all year, hopefully they dissipate in the offseason. I think that there's a lot of young players who can take this step forward and really make an impact and have those breakout seasons in 2024, which I'm looking forward to already because I have nothing left to look forward to in this crappy 2023 season. I'm a depressed Giants fan once again. I feel like this happens every goddamn year, and I'm sick of it. So hopefully this offseason something changes and everything turns around. But again, at least we've got 2 really good linebackers to watch through this home stretch of the season, and I'm really looking forward to continuing to discuss McFadden, Okereke, break them down on the channel, and all of that good stuff. But that pretty much wraps this one up. Make sure to leave a like if you did enjoy this episode. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. Ring the bell so you don't miss an episode, and comment your thoughts on the topic down below in the comment section. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify, please make sure to leave us a 5-star review, and go ahead and follow us on all of our social media channels at Fireside Giants. But without further ado, we will catch you all on the next one. Have a good one, and let's go Giants.